Hey, welcome to Perspective again. What we're going to do in this lesson is move on from the one-point perspective, where step one you built a shape, step two you drew to the vanishing points the visible corners, and step three you used a parallel line to close both sides. So in this one you have only one vanishing point. You can do a lot with it, but the downside is you always have to have this face exactly towards you. You can't turn it. If you turn that cube to the corner, then you can see that step one, instead of draw a shape, will be to draw the corner. Step two is you go with your visible corners, which is the top and bottom of this line to the left and right. You'll use parallel lines to close the back of the sides. Then you'll cross over. The back left corner goes to the right, the back right corner goes to the left. So the rules are just adjusted a little bit because you've taken this cube and turned it to the corner. What happens is you can rotate this cube a little bit or a lot. So if you think of this as being one angle in 300 or 1 degree, in 360 degrees that you can turn something, this is the other 359. So it really gives you some versatility. So here's kind of what it looks like if you break it down. What you're doing is you're trading in the horizontal. So we're still working in this perfect world, and for a cube you will have only vertical lines, left vanishing point, and right vanishing point lines. Now when we get to other things, and we'll be doing those today, there'll be exceptions to that. So just like we did like with triangles that turned into a prism, and this time the triangle will turn into a pyramid. So you'll see some exceptions there. But what happens is really horizontal, except for if the front shape in step one is an odd shape, that kind of goes away. Secondly thing here is you want to place your vanishing points on the paper's edges. So don't place them in like that. They want to go right on the edge, and I'll show you that. The 3 steps, instead of drawing a shape, you'll draw the corner so it'll look like a vertical line. Then you'll connect the visible corners to both vanishing points, and again the corners will look like the top and bottom of that line, and then parallel lines to close each line. Or each side, excuse me. So the same materials, you got a pencil and a ruler. You can have a compass handy, or this happens to be lying here. So I'm going to use just that lid. So to start off with, before I get to the steps, I want to establish vanishing points. And I want to keep those on a horizon. You can have it up here later on if you want to make it look like you're above everything, or down here for below. But again, for notes, we're going to keep it kind of in the middle. So somewhere about here. And usually what I'll do is I'll put a little dash. What's important to remember about this is that the vanishing point is where that goes off the edge. And the reason I put a dash instead of a dot is because a dot right on the edge of paper is kind of hard to see. But with a dash, it kind of points towards it. It's kind of like an arrow that says right there is the vanishing point. And you've got your left and your right vanishing point. And also, like the one-point perspective, those 2 vanishing points will serve the whole page. So everything you draw on here will use just that set of vanishing points. So you've got 2, that's what makes it 2 points. Alright, so if you imagine this line right here, and if you need to draw it in, you can. That is your horizon line. So remember on one point we put our first cube that we drew was on 12 o'clock. We located it so that we were seeing the simplest viewpoint. And we're going to do a similar thing here. So we're going to line up through the vanishing points and draw a cube, or I'm sorry. I just realized what I was doing. I was talking about 1 point just a minute ago, and I went back to 1 point. So ignore that, and this is correct. You've got left and right vanishing points, and for 2 point, it's going to start with just a line. So forget those horizontal lines. I just got mixed up. It's kind of early, so. Okay, so step 2 is you take your visible corners. So pretty much everything's visible right now. So the top is a corner and the bottom is a corner, and they go to the left. Remember that you want to be accurate. And the top and bottom will also go to the right. Your light lines will make things easier. So after step 2, it looks something like that. And we'll take out the horizon line so we won't get confused with it. And then to close the back, you just decide how big of a cube you want. So I'll make it kind of small on this side, but notice it's parallel. And I'll make it a little bigger on this side. Again, it's parallel. Then when these are gone or turn into guidelines, you've got your cube. So you're seeing a right side and a left side from the corner. And automatically, it looks a little more realistic than just the cube in 1-point perspective where we saw 2 sides. So if we want to add to that, we could draw another cube up here, step 1, and step 2. Added some tape, scooting around off the camera. And step 3, I'm sorry, step 2. I'm really confused this morning. So step 2 goes to the same vanishing points. Step 3, you want parallel. Now notice in step 3, once you finish step 3, there's not an extra step, but it looks like something's missing. Looks like the bottom is missing. Alright, so if you want to kind of think it through, this goes to the left, so the back will as well. It also goes to the right, so this one will go to the right. So basically you cross them over. Instead of having to guess at this and kind of just drawing these lines in and it looks almost correct, if you'll just remember that that back corner, the right goes to the left, left goes to the right, wherever they cross, it will find itself. Now we could also do the triangle that we did up here. It's going to start, instead of a shape though, it's going to start with a line. So what I'm doing is just putting part of that triangle in. And this one's a little stranger because it has an exception. This is where you no longer have these vertical lines. You have lines that are leaning, but they don't go to the vanishing point. So what I usually do is I'll put an edge to the triangle. The rest of it will be something like that. And I'll draw from that corner to the left and right. Then I'll just bring down these angles. And then now I've got these back 2 corners. So I'm still using the same steps that I have just changed a little bit to fit 2-point. Not using them quite in the same order. And you have this floating pyramid. Now usually what you do is you'll see a pyramid down here. So it makes a little more sense when it looks like it's sitting on the ground and you don't see the bottom of it. So I could go up to, well, that's a little bit too close to the edge. I'll probably talk about that later, but I try to keep all my objects a little bit in. The closer you get to right on an edge, the stranger things will look. And let's see. I'll start with that edge. Then I can put the sides in. I'm good to go. So you got a pyramid. Now it leans a little bit. So what I could do is I could keep those bottom ones. They're the ones that relate to the vanishing points. I could make this straighter. And I have something that looks a little more realistic. So if it was leaning, I can change that. So again, there's some things to kind of interpret and to work with more on your own. But that sort of helps. Now with the compass, the reason I said you might want that is just kind of to prove a point. In 1-point perspective, we did use a compass. If you're looking straight at a circle, it looks round. However, we're looking at an angle. We're looking at it from the side, no matter where it is. So it's not going to be round. But what you can do is you can build a little frame. For example, this side right here, we could round that off pretty easily and make an oval. So the vanishing points will help you to find even a circle in perspective. So if I started, if I wanted to do a cylinder, I could start with step 1. And I could go step 2. So really it's just looking like a cube at this point. And actually I'm going to wait on this side. I'll show you why in just a second. I'm just going to finish half of this. Now if you remember on some things we've done before, if you want to find the center of a square or anything that's right angles, you can just go from each corner and that'll be the center. That works in perspective as well. What that lets you do is see the halfway point. So what I did is I crossed over, found the center, I took a vertical line and a vanishing point line through it, and then it's just a matter of rounding those off. You can also do that free-handed and get pretty close. Now this is the reason I didn't go from this corner, because now you have that idea of tangent. Since the opening uses the right vanishing point, the side is going to use the left, and it's going to come up to right there. So had I drawn that first line, I just would have had to have changed it. So it's a little more confusing when I explain it, but it's not really harder. It's just like before. You just have to kind of get used to it. Step 3 is you match that curve, kind of work it into your straight line. And so this is not completely round. It would work if that was round, but by doing it this way, go into a little more trouble, then you're going to be able to make it look more realistic. A few applications of this is, let's say if you wanted to do a hole that was in the ground, kind of like the rugs that we did on the 1 point, but what happens is you have lines to the left, lines to the right, and it creates this space. Then what you can do is begin to round off that space. So this one I measured, this one I just did by hand. And you kind of have this tunnel that drops off, and you could erase out those. Another application of that is if you drew this, think of it as a floating piece of paper. So what I have is 2 lines to the left, 2 lines to the right. If I found the center, let's say if I was doing a room and I wanted to put a ceiling fan, now I've got a frame. So I can kind of build in, and it tells me exactly how long to make those, and your ceiling fan's in perspective. So it helps you with a lot of different shortcuts. We're going to work in the next video with hooking these together and making walls, looking at maybe some interiors and creating possibly a maze, and looking towards some finish work. So as far as assignments, on 1 point you had that series that you did. On 2 point, we're going to stop here. We're going to take it a little bit slower. This will be 1 grade, and you'll see a 2 point perspective. You'll see a second assignment on Canvas. That'll be the next stage of this, and then we'll have one that's a little more finished. So it's the same kind of idea, only I'm not doing it all in one assignment, so we can kind of build on it little by little. So for this assignment, what I like to see is 2 pages. First one is the one you do with me here, and the second one is just try some variations. Try a second one of these little sheets. Again, this is 1/4 of that one of those 9 by 12 sheets, so we divided it just like we did before, and just kind of see what you can do. And again, remember, put your vanishing points on the edge. If you want to try them up a little bit or down, That'll make you look like you're above, like a bird's eye view or a bug's eye view. Just don't move them all the way up. Move them maybe just a little bit up or down. And if you'll go back and look at these or write these notes down, then this kind of walks you through what those steps look like when you turn that cube to the corner. Alright, so give those a shot. That'll be a smaller grade, smaller than 50. And then we'll do a second one where we apply some of this 2-point. Okay, so give that one a shot.